Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, part 1 of our JD Edwards 921 and UX1 web series, Everything You Need to Know About JD Edwards' Latest Update, sponsored by Bridge. My name is Chris Vinson, and I will be today's webinar admin. Joining me will be our host, technical and CNC consultant, Will Fisher. Before we begin, let me start with introducing today's webinar sponsor, Bridge. Bridge has over 30 years experience providing enterprise application solutions for mid-sized to large organizations. Bridge provides best-in-class consulting services, technical and functional support services, education and training, as well as staffing solutions. Their client partnership approach ensures projects are designed for your organization's success. We will get into later how they can help you with your various JD Edwards initiatives. But for now, let me hand it off to today's host and speaker, Will Fisher, to introduce himself and help us learn a little bit more about JD Edwards' latest update, JD Edwards Tools 921, and JD Edwards' new user experience, UX1. Will?
All right, thank you, Chris. So I guess here's a little slide about myself. I am a technical and CNC consultant, like Chris mentioned, with Bridge. I've worked on implementation and upgrade projects, and I assist with Bridge's managed services support. And then in addition to that, I do training similar to this webinar, training classes around different technical related things with JD Edwards, and provide support and management of Bridge's internal training and demonstration systems. I want to go ahead and thank everybody again for joining us today. You may have noticed in the description of this event when registering that it's labeled as a series of webinars. When we were putting this together, we felt that it was important to break up what was initially going to be one webinar and kind of take things a step further. That way we could have some deeper dives into components that were both new and old that fall under the UX1 umbrella. So today's webinar is primarily geared towards the new tools 9.2.1 release, and what I guess I would consider to be the official release of UX1, and as Oracle would put it too. But however, we're also going to have some additional webinars in the coming weeks. They're going to focus on specifics of features such as the E1 page composer, classic E1 pages, one-view reporting, and watch lists. And in these additional sessions, you're going to learn more about these different pieces alone, and we're going to show you how to set up, create, and configure these. We'll be touching on some of these components today as they apply to UX1 and Tools 921, but stay on the lookout as there's going to be more to come. And so with that said, let's go ahead and jump into it and get started. So what is UX1? It's Oracle's latest advancement to their user experience. It uses this modernized graphical user interface and continues to build on that new look and feel that Oracle released back with Tools 915. It utilizes an alert, analyze, and act design principle. And so this drives users to be as productive and as efficient as possible. It does this through presenting users with notifications that alert them to specific conditions through watch lists. It displays real-time visualized data that allows users to analyze in the form of graphs and charts. And then it provides appropriate paths to those applications that the users need so they can take the necessary action there to resolve. UX1 includes role-based solutions for personalization and customization across the various product areas of Enterprise One. And then it also is very highly customizable. It provides a tool set that allows developers to create new and modified pre-built UX1 solutions. So UX1 is more than just charts. UX1 allows developers to leverage Oracle's Application Development Framework technology, also known as just ADF. This allows them to display modern user interfaces that have controls, such as those like you would see on a map. You can provide NAT charts and other diagrams that allow users to interact with their data. And then you can work the way you want to. With form personalization, UX1 users can display exactly what information is relevant with the capability to hide, show, move, rename, resize. They can reposition all these controls in a form. So if you're looking at this image here in the lower left on the slide, you'll see an example of form personalization. So in this case, I can actually rearrange by dragging and dropping. And I can also just remove, I can rename these fields, and configure it for a specific business process. In this example, it's looking at address book. So, sorry about that. UX1 pages are the role-based solutions that follow this whole alert, analyze, and act design principle. These contain 3 main panes. The first one is going to be your alert pane that contains your watch list. So if you're looking here on the left side of this image, this is an alert pane. In the center is going to be the analyze pane that's going to present your graphical data for analysis. And over to the right is an act pane that contains the springboard with the key tasks to resolve this present alerts. And a cool thing about the springboard is that whenever you actually launch tasks from the springboard, the system opens up those associated applications in a new frame, but it also keeps the springboard available at the top of that form. So this allows you to move to other associated tasks that were available in the springboard and still utilize it. And then, of course, as you close out of that springboard, it's going to take you back into that that UX1 page. So with that said, I want to go ahead and just kind of dive right into a UX1 pages demo. So if you'll give me a second here, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So right now you should be seeing my screen, just the login page here, JD Edwards. I'm going to go ahead and get signed in. There's going to be a little bit of delay as it loads up here. All right. So I think you should all have some visibility. So starting on this left side, you're going to see your alert pane that consists of the watch list to alert you to the situations that require immediate attention. You have a few different tabs here that configured to specific thresholds related to these watch lists. So those that are in a warning state, you can go into critical, which this one is also listed as critical. If we go back here to the main, we can refresh all of these watch lists at one time by choosing this little spinning arrow option here. And then we can refresh individual watch lists as well. In the middle is the analyze pane. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me step back one here to the watch list. Even more that you can do with these is from this watch list, you can click on these alerts and actually drill down into the associated applications. But continuing on, so in the middle is the analyze pane. So this is made up of the charts and the graphs, allowing you to review the data at a glance. And they typically utilize Oracle's Application Development Framework, or ADF. In the upper left of each chart, you're going to see these 3 little lines. This opens up a menu that allows you to change the applied saved query to this graph. So right now we have a released back order query applied, and we can change it by selecting the drop down and choosing another one. But before we do that, if you'll look, you'll notice there's also a filter button in the upper left, and this is what's known as the ad hoc query builder. So if we select this, it allows us to create and customize a query on the fly that will reflect in this chart. And if you'll notice, whenever I initially open this up, it's a little bit small, but what I can actually do is I can go right in here and expand this frame for this graph so I can see more. And I can adjust it as I need. But if I go back in here, and I'm going to go back and change this to, we'll say, ready to invoice chart. This is going to instantly update this graph with the latest data. If we want to see one of these charts displayed larger, we can pop it out into a larger view and then close it right back down. We can minimize any of these frames off to the side. So right now we have these 5 frames open. We can say hide one if we've got too much information. So if I click this minimize content option here in the upper right of this chart, it's going to push it up there to the upper right, and it's going to refresh my screen. So also in each of these charts, you'll see a legend on the right side. So in relation to this one, these are by specific requested dates. By clicking on these in the legend, I can remove some from the chart as I need, and kind of refine this data more so than what the query is presenting me. So the third portion of this UX1 page is your springboard over here on the right side. This allows you to take action based on what your watch lists are telling you and then the displayed data in the charts. And if we say click on add order here, this is going to take us right into the associated application, and it's going to keep the springboard pane accessible across the top of the form. And then from here, we continue on and we can access those other applications that are part of the springboard. If we close out of this application, it's going to take us right back to our UX1 page. I'm going to switch back here to slides. All right. So next thing, technology components related to UX1. So I guess after looking at that example, you might still be wondering or you're unsure how that UX1 page is made up. This is a list of those components that make up a UX1 page. The first of those being the E1 page composer. So a UX1 page is a composed E1 page. And then it utilizes watch lists there for that left pane that is your alert pane. It utilizes the Application Development Framework, or ADF, for one-view reporting style graphs and charts in the Analyze pane. And then it utilizes the Composite Application Framework, also known as CafeOne, to combine that information from various sources within a single form. And then when you select a task from that springboard and it carries you over into that application, that springboard showing still at the top of your screen is utilizing CafeOne. So here's somewhat like a condensed list of the roles delivered with Tools 921. These are the pre-configured role-based UX1 pages that are available to them. At last count, Oracle had released around UX1 content. There were 32 different roles. There were 79 UX1 pages. These contained 188 watch lists, 69 CafeOne configurations, and then almost 300 analytical displays. So in total, overall, 921 comes with nearly 1,300 user-defined objects that make up the UX1 content. So there are a lot of components available with 921 that help users be more productive and more efficient every day off the bat, just with installation. So the next feature I want to look at that is probably one of my most favorite components associated with the Tools 921, and that's the Enterprise One search. So the E1 search is actually an Enterprise One page, and it allows you to do keyword-driven enterprise-wide searches across your transactional data. So it gives you a standard search engine type of experience and has configurable search categories. It comes standard with categories for your address book, item master, and tasks. These search categories are hand-coded JSON files, so they utilize JavaScript. And you can specify exactly what tables or views, and then more so the specific columns that the categories are refined by. So on the back end of this Enterprise One search, it's utilizing an Application Interface Services server. So that's your AIS server. This may be something that you're all familiar with in relation to mobile applications. So if you have mobile applications deployed at your company, then you're deploying these utilizing an AIS server. In the past, they had used a different type of server, but with the newer applications that most are familiar with, it is that AIS server. So let's take a look at this Enterprise One search. Let me change my screen again, share it out. All right, so looking at the search page initially, on the left side, you're going to see this dropdown that allows you to specify which categories you want to search against. There is also a gear icon here, and this allows you to filter and enable or disable categories that either appear in the dropdown list or as part of your My Category category. So as far as the My Category, if I have a lot of these predefined and configured, I can sort this dropdown by my category, and I can refine what actually displays whenever I search. So it's just an easier way to refine those areas that you search most often. But for now, we're just going to go and search all categories. So let's look at an example of search use here. A common use would be for getting the path to an application. So if you have a very detailed menu structure, rather than hunting down an application or a report or something that you're looking through, and whether that's one that you use often or it's rarely used, you can just start typing the application that you're seeking, the name of it. So just for example, if we go in here into the menus and say we're going into financials and then accounts payable and daily processing and so on to get to speed voucher entry, we'll say here. Instead of going through this menu structure, if this was a more utilized, you might have it favorited. So it's something that you don't have favorited. You can go down here, you can type in speed voucher, and even just speed would be enough to actually bring this up. And from here, you can dive right into that application that you need. Clear this out. So say we want to get a quick look at current sales order for a specific customer. So we can simply start typing the name of that customer in the search bar. So we're looking at Capital. And you're going to see this is going to pull up all the address book records for customers that are capital of some sort in their naming. And then we can select the Info button here. Give it a second to load. And this will display their current sales orders. We can look at shipped sales orders, back-ordered sales orders. And then from here, if we go back, we can also take these three little dots. They are a related action link. So we can click this, and it allows us to drill down into the sales orders, and the data will already be filtered by this customer, that is customer 4242. Another example here would be, say, checking the quantity related to a specific item. So here we're going to search by item number. We know the item number, or we could do name as well, but we want to know how many we have. So we can search item number 2001, for example, which is this chromoly frame in red. So we can take the related information button, and it's going to show us the different locations of the items as well as the quantities and where it's used. So we can go into bill of materials, and we can see that these are the parent numbers associated. If we were to copy these numbers, we can then search on that item number as well, and then drill right down into that item. And it's filtered based on that item number from the E1 search. Close back out here. All right, so moving on. Let's skip some of my backup slides here. So configuration and customization. One of the next to last things here that I want to do is kind of review some of the configuration and customization tools that allow developers and programmers to take this end user experience of UX1 to the max. Some of these components I've already kind of gone over and covered a little bit, but one that I have not mentioned is related to the analytical components and the use of the Oracle JavaScript Extension Toolkit, also known as JET. This allows you to work with analytical content. So through creation and development of custom queries, you can change that, how it's displayed in charts and forms, and utilize things like tooltips. Another item here is the list view grid. So the list view grid allows you to change the grid associated with an application and stack those columns vertically to display, say, compact information grouped as needed. And if you look there on the right, that image is an example of a list view grid where I've taken the address book and I've kind of made the text related to address number and name larger, and then had it only list the tax ID. So this can be personalized just as you can actually personalize that form too, and change what's displayed within the form. So I guess lastly, what are the requirements around UX1 and pretty much everything that I've covered today? So the first thing is going to be Enterprise One Tools 9.2.1, obviously, but then an Application Interface Services Server, or AIS server, which is primarily utilized if you want to make use of that Enterprise One search. The AIS server is used to interact with E1 forms and data and display that. There's also the need for a WebLogic server with ADF, which is that application development framework. These are just some components that are utilized in building those UX1 pages. And one thing I feel it's really important to mention with UX1, and some of you may have been wondering about this during the webinar, previously, in order to utilize Watchlists, it was also required that you license one view reporting. However, with UX1, there's a restricted use license that's been created, so customers can access all of the content delivered with the UX1 pages at no additional cost, as long as they're licensed for that underlying JD Edwards module. The only caveat here is that if you wish to create your own UX1 pages that leverage the OneView tools, so the watch list and such, in that case you would be required to obtain a full use licensing for OneView reporting.
Thank you, Will. So now that you know a little bit more about JD Edwards 9.2.1 and UX1, where do you go from here? Bridge has over 30 years of experience with Oracle JD Edwards applications. Start by working with Bridge to develop a JD Edwards roadmap, assessing your organization's needs, coming up with a JD Edwards solution right for you, and laying out the steps to get there. Depending on your organization's needs, Bridge can provide a solution to ensure success. Solutions like implementing JD Edwards 9.2 or an upgrade of your current JD Edwards application. Bridge's team of expert consultants can also guide your organization through your JD Edwards cloud migration. To make these solutions a reality, Bridge provides industry-leading services, including their consulting services, staffing solutions, fully managed support services, and education and training services. Bridge also can provide folder release support and application development services to create a custom solution for your organization. Now, it looks like we have a little time to answer some questions we've received over the webinar. So, first question we have is, what performance implications does using UX1 have? Will?
So the performance of each UX1 page itself is really dependent on like the number of rows each component the rows each component is retrieving, so the logic behind those processes, and then like the graphical components as well. And one thing that can be done here and is normally recommended is you can set up an additional HTML server instance, and this can be used to just process those AIS requests and others related to the UX1. And this way your web client users aren't impacted by UX1 in terms of performance.
Okay. Thanks, Will. So going right on ahead, the next question we have is, what security setup is necessary for UX1 pages?
So all of the components associated with UX1 pages are classified as user-defined objects, or UDOs, as some may be familiar with. So you're managing the same way as you manage other UDOs. If you're not familiar with UDOs, those are something new with tools. Let's say it was 915 when UDOs were first introduced. Either way, it was whenever the OMW web came out. But so these UDOs, the security around that includes enabling specific security features. So that's basically just turning on being able to use a watch list or not, being able to create a E1 composed page or not. And then, of course, there's related action and view security associated. With Tools 921, there are UDO zip files for each of those specific roles that you can import through the OMW web application. So whenever you make a UX1 page viewable to a user through UDO view security, you're also going to have to make the watch lists and the CafeOne and the pre-delivered queries and grid formats to viewable by that user or that role that you're sharing out that that UX1 page with.
Thanks, Will. So it looks like that may be all the time we have for questions today. We see we have a couple left unanswered. We will be reaching out to you guys individually after this webinar is over to answer those questions. So that concludes today's webinar. Again, if you have any additional questions or would like to learn a little bit more about Bridge and their JD Edwards services, please feel free to reach out to us via email at info@bridge.net or by phone at 336-854-2948. You can also learn more about Bridge through their website at bridge.net or by following one of their social media accounts on Twitter or LinkedIn, as you can see to the right. Thank you all for attending today's webinar. You all will be receiving a follow-up email with your own copy of today's webinar as a recording. Make sure you join us for part 2 of our JD Edwards 921 and UX1 webinar series coming up next month. Again, thank you for attending, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.